Echoes of the Silent Dawn. Chapter 1. Whispers of Dawn. Varick Klein stood in the heart of the town square, his broad shoulders taut as he surveyed the gathered crowd. Morning light bathed the weathered stone benches and faded murals, casting long shadows that danced with the whispers of the wind. He scanned the faces before him, some expectant, others wary, as the scent of damp earth mingled with burning incense. Children's laughter echoed faintly in the background, a stark contrast to the tension thickening the air. With hands resting firmly on his hips, he exhaled slowly, feeling the coiling tension in his muscles, a silent warning that the fragile peace might shatter if he slipped. Keeping a steady stance, he remained alert, every sense sharpened for signs of unrest brewing just beneath the surface. The crowd's anticipation crackled like static. A soft rustle broke the morning quiet as someone shifted. Varick's gaze sharpened, his breath steadied as he fought to hold his calm. A young woman stepped forward, her voice trembling with defiance. "So we just stand by while they take everything from us?" she challenged, eyes flashing with fierce resolve. Varick answered his tone even despite the weight of her words pressing heavily on him. "Disorder will be our undoing." The murmurs grew louder, tension thickening like a storm cloud swirling overhead. He pressed his palms into the stone, anchoring himself as if the ground beneath could hold back the rising chaos. The rhythm of the crowd shifted, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore. Varick's gaze darted around, searching for stability. The clock was ticking, an announcement was due in minutes, and the peace he fought for dangled precariously. An older man approached, gravelly voice low and laden with warning. "Tread carefully, Varick. One false move and the whole village burns." Varick met his gaze, a flicker of defiance igniting in his eyes. "Order must be maintained," he replied, though the words barely masked the fragility of his authority. The air thickened, the unspoken threat hanging heavy between them, as the crowd held its collective breath, waiting for the moment that would decide their fate. Finally, Varick raised his voice, slicing through the murmurs with a commanding tone. "Enough!" he called, locking eyes with the nearest villagers. Silence fell, yet the tension remained palpable. He inhaled deeply, gesturing toward the horizon. "The time is coming. We must face what's been hidden." His words echoed, but the meaning lay in his steady gaze, an unspoken challenge that stirred the crowd. As the first official signal crackled over the square, Varick's jaw tightened, the knowledge of the thin veneer of peace weighing heavily on him. The gathering stared, waiting for him to lead them into whatever lay ahead. The moment had arrived, silent, sharp, and unavoidable. Wren Thorne stood at the edge of the town hall steps, sweat slicking her palms, her stomach clenched into tight coils. The midday sun blazed down on the crowd gathered below, their faces a mix of expectation and skepticism. Banners fluttered lazily in the breeze, balloons bobbing like nervous thoughts. Beneath the festive veneer, a tension rippled through the air. Her eyes swept the crowd, expectant faces, suspicious glances. She gripped the edge of her coat, every second dragging her closer to a decision that could shatter everything or save her. The sweet scent of baked goods wafted from nearby stalls mingled with the murmurs of the restless crowd. The rising voice from the stage cut through the noise, pulling her attention toward the moment of truth. The mayor's speech droned, words spilling out in a measured tone that began to grate on Wren's nerves. Her jaw tightened, muscles stiffening, as each phrase felt like a countdown to exposure. She wanted to scream, to reveal the truth that burned within her, but her voice felt trapped somewhere deep inside. A hand grasped her arm. It was Lila, her eyes wide with fear. "Wren, wait. This isn't the time," she whispered, urgency lacing her words. "Once you say it, there's no going back. Are you ready to pay that price?" Wren hesitated, her steps faltering as she processed the weight of Lila's concern. The crowd cheered, and the mayor raised his hands for silence, the unveiling imminent. Her fingers itched to act, to tear away the fabric hiding the truth, but doubt pressed against her resolve as the mayor's voice boomed, calling for quiet. Wren's gaze flickered to the unveiling, a chaotic mix of bright colors concealing secrets beneath. "You're going to ruin everything." Lila's voice cut through the excitement, sharp and frantic. Wren shook her head, a knot forming deep in her stomach. She pushed through the throng, the crowd's noise fading into a dull roar. Just as she reached the stage, a loud crash erupted. Chaos broke loose. People scrambled to help a fallen figure, blocking her view. "Move," she shouted, her voice cracking, her heart racing as she navigated the throng, each step clumsy but urgent. The clock ticked louder than her pounding pulse. She strained to see the unveiling.
breath hitching as the fabric began to fall away, revealing something far more dangerous than she could have anticipated. Wren's gaze locked onto the exposed statue, a gasp rippling through the crowd. Her hands trembled, voice caught in her throat. Shredded fabric lay at her feet, and behind it a twisted metal form gleamed ominously. The festival's colors faded into a blur, and thoughts collided chaotically, scrambling for clarity. Marcus's desperate yell broke through the haze. "Wren, stop!" he shouted, his face pale, panic etched in his features. She hesitated, fingers clenched into fists.
The town hall echoed with the scent of aged parchment and faint incense, wrapping Varric in a ghostly embrace from another time. His fingers brushed the cool marble of a nearby sculpture, tracing the worn edges that bore witness to countless gatherings. The sacred chants pulsed softly, syncing with the rapid thrum of his heartbeat. Lantern light flickered over faded murals, whispering stories of Vale's Edge, stories he carried like a burden today. A sharp gust from the distant ridges carried a biting tang that warned him away. His gaze fixed on the unveiled statue, a symbol of the crowd's jubilation now fractured by an undercurrent of dread that twisted in his gut. The clock's relentless ticking edged closer to the festival's climax, an unforgiving countdown where truth threatened to shatter the peace. Varric clenched his jaw, time to act, but doubt stirred within him, a storm brewing just below the surface. He stepped forward, his boots scraping faintly against the cold stone floor. No allies surrounded him, only expectant silence and flickering glances. The air smelled of smoke and old wood, pulling him back to firelit nights of his youth when secrets felt safer. "Mark my words," he muttered, fingers twitching, a habit from too many tense meetings. "This won't end clean." He spoke steadily, though pain throbbed at his temples, warning him of the storm inside. A rustle from the doorway sent a jolt through him. Shadows gathered at the entrance, and a sudden stillness seized him. "We can't just stand here," he urged, voice edged with urgency. His mind raced through every possible crisis, every failed plan. Responsibility pressed down on him like a vice. His gaze lingered on the mural, depicting Vale's Edge's founding silent battles fought behind closed doors. He pulled a folded note from his jacket, fingers trembling despite himself. The ink smudged, but the message was clear: no, and a coded refusal, a dead end disguised as permission. Varric clenched his jaw, lips thinning into a hard line. Every step forward meant bending rules, risking more than reputation. "Truth's a double-edged blade. Slip once, and we all bleed," he murmured, almost to himself. The crowd shifted uneasily. He looked into their eyes, searching for a flicker of defiance or despair. None appeared. The whispering chants faded into hushed secrets passed between stones. Varric swallowed hard, recalling a long-lost friend who had trusted him with a dangerous truth. "Listen closely," he said, his voice rough from holding back the storm inside. "We've danced this dance before. Every step's a gamble." His fingers twitched again, revealing his anxiety even in the dim light. "We're at a precipice, but jumping blindly won't save us." The lantern's glow faltered, shadows dancing on the walls, playing tricks on his tired eyes. He paced a careful arc, hands clenching, then relaxing. The silent archive loomed like a fortress, its heavy wooden doors almost daring intruders to uncover the secrets within. Varric Klein pressed his back against a cold stone pillar, sweat trickling down his brow. The air was thick with the musty scent of aging paper and beeswax, and shadows danced across shelves crammed with leather-bound books. Faint rays of dying sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting amber patches on the uneven floor. Outside, the festival pulsed with muffled drums and laughter, a vibrant distraction from the urgency thrumming in his veins. He had until dawn one night to uncover the truth that could shatter everything he believed. Clutching his dagger, Varric inhaled deeply, steeling himself for the darkness ahead. He stepped forward, heart racing, every sound amplifying the tension in his chest. Varric's footsteps echoed softly as he navigated the labyrinth of corridors. Every door was a possible gateway to the truth he sought. He scanned the shelves for any sign, a clue to the hidden section where the crucial tome lay. A creak from the old floorboards made him flinch, and he paused, listening. A faint rustle behind a door set his muscles on edge. Nothing, just the distant sounds of the festival beyond. He brushed his fingers across a leather spine, but it offered no answers. Varric pressed on, pulse thunderous, each second stretching like a taut string. Near the massive stone door at the end of the hall, Varric pressed his ear to the cold surface. A faint shuffling of parchment slipped through the cracks. Someone was inside. Instinct sharpened his gaze, muscles coiled, and his breath hitched, panic twisted in his gut.
He glanced at his dagger, then back to the door, weighing his options. Sneaking in risked capture if caught. He'd be trapped, or worse. He crouched low, eyes darting for a way in, heart hammering in his chest. "I know you're in there!" A voice sliced through the silence, cold and menacing. A sharp knot twisted in his gut. Instinct kicked in. Muscles coiled. Varric crouched behind a pillar, gripping his dagger tighter. The voice rang again, closer now, laced with a cruel edge. He scanned the corridor, desperate for an escape route. Spotting a narrow window
A masked figure slipped through the dense throng of festival goers, its familiar shape edging just beyond reach, drawing Varric's gaze. Shadows clung to the narrow alley like a second skin, the flickering lantern light casting uneven patches on the cracked stone walls. The muffled hum of the festival faded behind him, replaced by the sharp scent of damp earth and burnt incense lingering in the cool air. Varric's ears throbbed with each pulse as he advanced, eyes locked on the elusive silhouette. The alley seemed to shrink, the shadows pressing in. He reached out, fingertips brushing the rough brick, feeling unseen eyes watching him. Every instinct screamed that he was close, yet something remained just beyond his grasp, silent and impenetrable. He moved swiftly, the sound of his boots echoing softly on the wet stones. The figure slipped behind a leaning crate, disappearing into the gloom. Varric froze, ears straining for any sound. Faint whispers drifted from the walls, indistinct but persistent, like leaves caught in a restless breeze. A soft rustle of silk, sharp details cutting through the silence. He spun around, scanning the shadows. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure melted into the darkness, eyes glinting like wet stones. Varric's jaw tightened. "Enough hiding. Face me now," he commanded, his voice firm, demanding. Silence responded, thick and unyielding, as if the alley itself hesitated. The air grew dense, shadows pressing closer. He clenched his fists, feeling the cold bite of dusk seep through his gloves, resolve anchoring him in place. No turning back now. The alley's end yawned ahead, a jagged maw swallowed by darkness. Varric's breath hitched as the masked figure reappeared, pausing beneath a flickering lantern. The face behind the mask was half-lit, eyes sharp and unreadable. A slow, deliberate smile curled at the corners of cold lips. "You're already ensnared, Varric," the figure whispered, chilling him to the bone. A sharp pang twisted through Varric's stomach. Fight-or-flight instincts flaring to life. The distant festival's noise faded, replaced by a heavy silence. The figure stepped forward, shadow spilling over a scarred face beneath the mask. Varric's voice came rough. "Why haunt me tonight? Speak your purpose." The figure's smile widened, eyes gleaming with secrets. "The answer lurks in shadows you refuse to see." The moment stretched thin, tension crackling like static. Varric's jaw clenched, but he held his ground, staring into the darkness, waiting for the next move. The figure's silhouette dissolved into the shadows, leaving Varric alone in the cold silence. The alley exhaled a breath of damp air, the faint glow of lanterns flickering. Varric Klein stepped into the hushed realm of the silent archive, where twilight draped the stone walls in shadows. Dust motes swirled lazily in the fading light, disturbed only by his cautious footfalls. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and the lingering aroma of beeswax candles, recalling the quiet libraries of his youth. His fingers traced the spines of leather-bound volumes, grounding him as he searched for something elusive. Outside, the distant sounds of a city festival, laughter mingling with drums, drifted through the ancient walls, yet here time seemed to stand still. With every heartbeat, anticipation quickened, urging him deeper into the dimness of knowledge long kept at bay. The silence felt alive around him, heavy with secrets waiting to be unearthed. His hand hovered over a worn tome, its cover warmed by flickering candlelight. He opened it, releasing a musty cloud of ink and parchment that filled his lungs. Varric flipped through the brittle pages, urgency propelling his search. Something flickered at the edge of his vision, and he froze in place. His heart thudded wildly as he fixed his gaze into the darkness,
nothing stirred. The shadows felt dense around him, a quiet audience holding its breath, waiting for him to uncover what had been hidden for generations. Just then, a soft sound, a creak or a whisper, made him tense, every muscle ready to spring. He had come too far to turn back now. The truth was within reach, and he wouldn't leave without it. The scroll lay before him, frayed at the edges and curling with age. As Varric unfurled it, faded ink shimmered in the half-light, hinting at revelations long suppressed. He clenched the scroll tightly, fingers white against the fragile parchment. This was the moment. Yet beneath the surface lay a gnawing dread. What if the truth shattered everything he believed? He studied the words, feeling the weight of their implications, when a sudden noise shattered the stillness. Something fell, or someone moved. His body stiffened, ready to spring at the slightest sound. Without hesitation, he shoved the scroll back into its hiding spot and backed away, eyes darting through the shadows. The pounding of blood filled his ears, drowning out all else. The festival's distant hum grew louder in his mind, a reminder of what was at stake. Varric dashed for the exit, clutching the scroll like a secret weapon. Outside, the cool evening air wrapped around him, heavy with anticipation. He paused at the threshold, glancing back at the darkened library, shadows still whispering. "I'll be back," he murmured, stepping into the dusk. The world beyond lay waiting, uncertain, dangerous, and hungry for the truth. With each step, he felt the thrill of discovery.
Whispering Shadow Alley stretched before Varric, a narrow path cloaked in muted grey haze. The cracked cobblestones felt cold beneath his worn leather boots, slick with the dampness that clung to the air. A faint flicker from lantern light cast ghostly shadows against the rough walls, which were a tapestry of peeling paint and graffiti. The scent of aged wood mixed with damp stone and a trace of burnt incense hung in the air, thick and heavy. Distant murmurs from the town square drifted through the silence, tempting him to either reveal the truth or let it rot in shadows. He stepped forward, cool air biting at his lungs, while the haunting stillness closed around him, urging him into the unknown. As he ventured farther into the alley, the walls crept closer, constricting his resolve. His breath hitched, and fists clenched as adrenaline surged through him. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure darted past, swallowed by the gloom. "Not now," he muttered, shaking his head as if to dispel the unease. Distractions were a luxury he couldn't afford, not with revelation looming over him like a thundercloud. A rustle drew his attention. Varric halted, muscles tensing. Shadows shifted, revealing a small shape hunched near the alley's edge. A child, no more than 8, stared at him with wide, unblinking eyes. "Are you lost?" Varric asked, forcing softness into his tone. The child merely continued to gauge him, head slightly tilted. Varric crouched to meet the child's gaze, searching for a connection amid the chaos swirling in his mind. "I'm not here to hurt you," he insisted. The child's lips parted, yet no words came. Instead they watched him, curiosity flickering in their eyes, stirring memories of chasing shadows from his own childhood, days untouched by the burden of truth. "Stay safe," he said, standing again. He pressed deeper into the alley, leaving the child behind. The alley twisted, the world outside fading into an echoing void. Each step took him closer to a reckoning, but the truth felt slippery, elusive. His hands trembled, jaw tight, fear and determination battling as he refused to turn back. Just then, a sudden noise shattered the tension, a crash followed by a low, guttural growl. Varric froze, instincts flaring. He pressed against the stone wall, feeling the cold seep into his skin. The growl intensified, reverberating through his chest. He squared his shoulders and met the figure's gaze without flinching. He had come too far to turn back now. A hulking mass loomed ahead, backlit by the dying light. The growl morphed into a mocking chuckle. "You think you can just waltz through here?" Varric Klein stood at the edge of the Vale's edge, the afternoon sun draping a warm light over the uneven stones beneath her feet. The plaza hummed with anticipation, whispers threading through the air, mingling with the faint scent of incense and freshly baked bread wafting from nearby stalls. Murals painted in vibrant shades of red and green shimmered in the fading light, their colors throbbing with life. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, casting flickering shadows that danced across weathered carvings and marble sculptures. A distant chant, sharp and insistent, reverberated through the square, calling everyone to attention. Varric balled her hands into fists at her sides, muscles taut as she prepared for the confrontation ahead.
Today would unveil truths long buried or bury them forever. She moved closer to the gathered crowd, eyes scanning the faces turned toward her. The townsfolk stiffened, their whispered voices dropping to uneasy silence as they caught sight of her. Varric ground her teeth, lips pressing into a hard line. "We cannot keep hiding behind lies," she called out, voice steady but edged with urgency. A few nodded, but most looked away, uncertainty shadowing their expressions. Quintus Cinder stood a few paces away, arms crossed, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Varric, this isn't the time for reckless honesty," he replied quietly, his tone low but sharp. "The chaos it would unleash, think of the consequences." Varric shot him a look that could slice through stone. "We've already lost trust. People deserve the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us." Her words echoed in the silence. A child's laughter broke through the tension, but it was quickly swallowed by the collective breath held in anticipation. The wind stirred the banners overhead, fabric snapping softly as Varric's gaze fell on the pedestal adorned with offerings. Her knuckles whitened. "If we don't face the truth now, it will only fester, poisoning everything." She pressed, voice rising. "We must confront what's been hidden." Quintus's eyes flickered, uncertainty creeping in. "And what if revealing the proof leads to collapse, to destruction?" His tone was cautious, but doubt flickered in his gaze. Varric's fists clenched tighter. "Then we rebuild from the ashes. Better to fall on truth than to live in lies that rot us from the inside." The crowd shifted, whispers rising like a tide with her fervor. Varric stepped forward, eyes fixed on the gathering. "Today we decide. We face what's true, no matter the cost." The first notes of the festival's opening song echoed through the square, clear and piercing, slicing the heavy air. Lanterns flickered, casting a warm glow over the assembled faces, some hopeful, others wary.
Wren Thorn crouched behind a broken cart, her fingers trembling while the bustling square of the Vale's edge spilled vibrant life before her. Lantern light flickered over weathered murals, casting shifting shadows on the uneven stones beneath her feet. The festival's clamour swelled, a mixture of laughter, shouted promises, and distant drums. Incense curled through the air, mingling with the sharp tang of mountain wind. Guard faces, stern and unyielding, patrolled the perimeter, Wren's gaze fixed on them. Every second felt like a blade slicing her resolve. The council chamber lay just beyond the next alley, but barricades and armed sentinels blocked her path. The crowd pressed inward, unaware or perhaps resigned to the danger lurking among them. As she prepared to move, her breaths came shallow and quick. Hesitation would lead to capture or worse. Driven by raw desperation, Wren surged forward, crashing into the barricade with her shoulder. Pain shot through her, but she didn't slow. The crowd's shouts turned to shrieks as she pushed through the chaos, people scattering in all directions. A guard spotted her, voice rising in a sharp command. She dodged behind a column, heart racing, eyes flicking for an escape. A guard's torch flickered nearby, the faint insignia of an old ally gleaming on his uniform. Could she risk a plea, or would that slow her? Her fingers clenched into fists. The festival's fireworks erupted above, lighting up the sky. Was it celebration or sabotage? Less than a heartbeat later, she darted into a side alley, shadows swallowing her. A thunder roared in Wren's ears, each beat echoing like a drum. Her body jolted as footsteps drew close, breath hitching. She swallowed hard, a sharp sting constricting her chest. The alley's end loomed, a dead end, spotting a narrow gap between two crates. She sprinted, slipping through just as a guard's shout echoed behind her. Her lungs burned, legs pounding pavement as she pushed toward the council chamber, the distant bells tolling ominously. The crowd thickened, the air heavy with suspicion. Shadows of pursuers grew larger, closing in. Every step felt heavier, the pressure of her mission pressing down. Her mind raced. The clock's ticking felt relentless. Only minutes remained before the truth was lost or revealed. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, and she knew the net was tightening. Would her gamble pay off, or had she already lost her chance? A barricade of timber and stones suddenly barred her path. Voices shouted commands, weapons glinted in the fading light. No time to hesitate. Wren's fists slammed into the wood, splinters flying. Pain shot. The drums hammered in Varric's chest, a brutal echo of the festival's final warning. His boots pressed into the cracked earth of the Vale's edge, each step tightening the noose of expectation around him. Behind him, the deputy captain loomed, relentless and unforgiving,
a predator closing in on its prey. Varric gripped the leather strap of his satchel, knuckles whitening as it hummed with secrets that could unravel everything. The air tasted sharp, a brittle stillness stretched taut between the mournful breeze and the restless crowd beyond the ridge. He couldn't glance back. Ahead lay the truth, either exposed or buried forever beneath the festival's veil. A low breath escaped him. With each heartbeat, time became a blade, and Varric had no choice but to meet the edge head-on. He skirted the ragged line where shadow met sun, muscles coiled beneath worn fabric. Every eye at the festival burned with anticipation, 1,000 silent judgments pressing down on him. Varric's gaze locked onto the carved stone altar, its surface scarred and chipped, the place where words might ignite flames or bury whispers. The deputy captain's footsteps, steady and unyielding, threaded behind him like a noose tightening with each tick of the gathering dusk. Varric swallowed, his throat tightening. Sweat traced a cold path down his spine. His fingers brushed the cold metal beneath his shirt, a token, a weapon, a memory. The festival's murmur rose like a tide, an engulfing swell, but he stood firm, shadows, stretching long, refusing to yield. A sudden movement caught Varric's eye, a child darting through the crowd, clutching a tattered banner. The boy's face was smudged with dust and determination, eyes wide and unblinking. Something raw and urgent simmered beneath that innocence. His jaw clenched tightly, grinding his teeth in silent defiance. The deputy captain's voice cut through the din, sharp and low. "Stay focused." The words struck like a whip. Varric swallowed, his pulse hammering in his ears, threatening to burst free. The moment felt fractured, teetering on the brink of chaos. The wind shifted, carrying scents of burning wood and crushed herbs, a bittersweet perfume clawing at old memories. Varric gripped the stone altar's edge, the rough surface digging into his calloused skin. His gaze darted to the tapestry draped behind it, threads unraveling, colors bleeding into one another like fading promises. Whispers curled through the crowd, a tangled web of half-heard confessions and veiled threats. He clutched his chest, struggling to draw a steady breath. The festival's veil was thinner than ever, the line between truth and deception razor-sharp. He forced his shoulders to relax, steadying the trembling that threatened to betray him. The deputy captain.
The Vale of Echoes loomed large, its domed ceiling a tapestry of swirling shadows cast by flickering lanterns. Stone pillars, ancient and worn, stretched toward the heavens, their carvings whispering secrets to anyone who dared to listen. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and the faintest trace of incense, mingling with a metallic tang that hinted at the artifact's recent absence. Varric Cline stood at the chamber's threshold, the cool marble beneath his bare feet sending a shiver up his spine. A distant trickle of water echoed through the silence, a reminder of the weighty expectations pressing upon him. He felt the murmurs of the council members drift through the air, fragmented and elusive like ghosts haunting the edges of his resolve. Today he would shatter the stillness with the truth, and the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his voice to break through the silence. Varric shifted his weight, the coolness of the marble grounding him as he focused on the head of the table. A council member scribbled furiously, the scratch of quill against parchment slicing through the tension like a knife. Varric's fingers drummed against his thighs, urging himself to remain steady. The murmurs grew louder, accusations of betrayal floated through the air, sharp and piercing. He could feel eyes on him, heavy and searching, and the shadows seemed to inch closer, eager for the truth to unfold. He glanced toward Quintus, whose anxious expression mirrored his own. "You ready for this?" Quintus whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. Varric nodded, though the doubt gnawed at him. He swallowed hard, determined to fight back against the tide of uncertainty. Varric drew a slow breath, pressing his palms flat against his thighs to still their tremble. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation as the council leader rose, chair scraping loudly against the marble floor. Varric's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of finally embracing his truth. He met the gazes of the council members, each one a challenge, a question hanging in the air. Wren's eyes were sharp, filled with an intensity that warned him to tread carefully. "Varric, don't," she began, but he cut her off with a quick glance, the weight of her warning heavy in his chest. It was time to step into the light, even if it threatened to burn. With a steadying motion, Varric raised his voice, the words spilling forth raw and honest. The chamber responded, a ripple of tension sweeping over the gathered council. "I cannot stand by any longer, while the truth is buried beneath lies and deceit. The leadership we have trusted has betrayed us.
The words echoed off the stone walls, each syllable a challenge to the status quo. Gasps rippled through the crowd, shock mingling with disbelief. Wren's expression hardened.
The alley, a shadowed fissure between crumbling buildings, felt oppressive, barely wide enough for Wren Thorn to squeeze through. Flickering lanterns cast ghostly patches of light on the damp stones, illuminating the uneven cobblestones beneath her worn boots. A faint scent of burnt incense mingled with the musty smell of wet wood, curling around her like a shroud. As she moved deeper into the gloom, her heart slammed in her chest, each beat a reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. She pressed on, her hands trembling, breath hitching in quick, shallow bursts as she scanned for movement. Somewhere ahead, the informant must be nearby, hiding behind a broken crate or lurking in the shadows. Time was slipping away, and the distant hum of the festival faded into an ominous silence. Shadows twisted beneath a flickering lantern ahead. Wren's gaze sharpened, noting a figure hesitant near the corner. His eyes darted to a small bundle of papers rustling in his pocket, like trapped birds. "You're late," she hissed, voice laced with tension as her grip tightened on her weapon. The man's jaw clenched, eyes flicking nervously to the papers. "It's not that simple," he whispered, stepping back toward a narrow side passage. Instantly a shout erupted from the street, boots pounding, voices rising. Wren's stomach plummeted. The patrol was coming fast, their shadows growing larger. She lunged forward, but the street's noise swallowed her chance. Without thinking, she pressed her back against the damp wall, heart racing, waiting for the right moment. The patrol's glare sliced through the darkness, their eyes narrowed sharply, scanning the alley with hard suspicion. Wren froze, breath held tight in her chest. The informant slipped into a doorway, vanishing like smoke. Fists clenched, she hesitated, torn between chasing him or retreating. Every second felt like poison. Her muscles tensed for action. The lanterns from the festival blazed in the distance, promising safety or disaster depending on her next move. Her body screamed to run, to fight, anything but remain still. The clock's relentless tick echoed in her ears, less than 90 minutes remaining. Failure wasn't an option. She had to act now. A sudden cry pierced the alley, the informant's voice, raw and urgent. Wren spun, spotting him trapped between two guards. "Help me," he gasped, panic flickering in his eyes. Wren's hand shot out, grabbing a discarded pipe. Metal clanged against armor as she swung with desperation. The guards staggered, shouts ringing in her ears. The informant slipped free, clutching the papers, but a blow caught Wren's side, pain searing through. The heavy wooden door of Echoes of the Vale creaked open, shattering the muted hum of whispered voices outside. Quintus stepped into the dimly lit hall, the air thick with the scent of aged parchment and melted wax. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass, casting fractured patterns onto the cracked stone walls, where shadows flickered like memories of the past. She ran her fingers over the table's grainy surface, a silent testament to centuries of secrets held within these walls. Outside, the crowd pressed closer, their murmurs swelling, a tide of anticipation that seeped into the room. Quintus's jaw clenched tight, her breaths quick and shallow, as she wrestled with the urgency of the moment. This was the point of no return, and the truth dangled just out of reach. "Quintus, listen. This clock's ticking faster than we thought. The crowd's swelling like a storm. No turning back now. We have to strike before nightfall, or everything's lost." Dorian's voice cut through the tension, sharp and insistent. His eyes darted towards the window, where the sunlight was beginning to fade. Quintus's hands trembled as she reached for the parchment. The ticking clock hammered in the silence, each second hitting her like a blow to the ribs. Her mind raced, searching for the right words, words that would either free them or doom them all. She clenched her jaw, eyes fixed on the document, willing herself to act. "We can't hold off any longer," Dorian urged, his voice rising in desperation. "If we don't move now, it's gone. The crowd's out there, restless. We've got minutes, maybe even less." His anxiety was palpable, a crackling energy that pulled at her resolve. Her gaze flicked from the parchment to Dorian's anxious face, then back again. The taste of iron lingered on her tongue, a bitter reminder of the stakes. Her muscles coiled, ready to spring, but her hands froze, torn by fear and determination. Outside, the murmurs grew louder,
a collective heartbeat echoing through the stone hall, urging her to act. She pushed herself upright, the candle's flame flickering wildly in the draught. Her hand hovered over the parchment, now steady. The crowd's anticipation pressed against the thick walls, their murmurs rising like a tide ready to break. Quintus took a deep breath, tasting the bitter tang of wax and ink. The moment was here, no more hesitation. The hall fell silent, save for the faint crackle of the candle. Her voice sliced through the stillness, steady and unwavering, as she unveiled the truth long buried outside. A shout erupted, sharp and triumphant, as the secret spilled into the open, the sound ricocheting off the ancient walls. The old town hall.
Varick Klein felt the rough stone of the plaza beneath his fingertips, the grooves carved by countless footsteps, a reminder of the struggles that had unfolded here. The midday sun blared overhead, casting sharp shadows that danced over the weathered murals, remnants of a once vibrant past. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense and dust, a cocktail of history and urgency. He leaned against a low wall, the cool stone a stark contrast to the heat of the moment. Around him chance soared, rising like a tide, as the crowd gathered, an expectant energy crackling in the air. His chest tightened, breath shortening as secrets threatened to surface or be buried forever. The stones beneath his hands seemed to hum with a promise of change, urging him to step into the fray that awaited at the veil's edge. A ripple of movement caught Varick's eye as a group of allies darted through the alleyways, their faces taut with tension. He locked eyes with each one, nodding sharply. A shout echoed from the shadows, and he tightened his grip on his weapon. Ren Thorne's forces had spotted them. He pressed himself deeper into the corner, listening as chaos erupted down the street, boots pounding, metal clanging, shouts of defiance mingling with fear. "Keep moving, eyes sharp, stay tight," he muttered, his voice a low whisper. His allies responded with swift nods, darting between cover as they spread out, determined to unveil the truth amid the chaos. Each skirmish, every crack of gunfire, escalated the stakes. This wasn't just rebellion, it was a fight to expose the lies Ren desperately wanted to keep hidden. Ren's voice cut through the din, sharp and commanding. "Seize them! No mercy! They don't leave this street alive!" Her soldiers surged forward, armor clinking ominously as they advanced. Varick ducked behind a cart, stealing a moment to catch his breath. "We're close," whispered one of his allies, eyes darting over the street. "The evidence is nearby, hidden in the old library." Varick's jaw tightened at the thought of that secret library holding the proof that could topple Ren's regime. He shot a quick glance at his team, signaling them to split and flank. The city's narrow alleys morphed into a labyrinth of shadows and dust as they pressed on, voices echoing off the stone walls. Each step brought them closer to the truth, and to Ren's tightening grip. Amid the chaos, Varick spotted a figure in the distance, a messenger racing toward Ren's forces. Danger prickled at his skin. "Hold the line, no ground lost," he barked, raising his weapon. "We're not done yet." The fight raged on, bullets whizzing past, debris flying in all directions. Varick's muscles screamed with fatigue, but he... Varick crouched behind a rusted conduit, her breath caught in sync with the relentless rhythm hammering inside her ribs. The hidden base buzzed with restless energy, shadows dancing across cold metal walls. Outside, the festival's countdown loomed less than 3 hours away, each second a reminder of urgency. She focused on the central comm array, the only hope for transmitting the damning evidence before the Veil's Edge ceremony. Failure would spell catastrophe, not just for her, but for everyone counting on that signal. Her fingertips twitched, craving movement, but outside patrols moved in slow, deliberate sweeps. Each moment felt like a stone dropped into a still pool, rippling toward disaster. The clock's relentless tick echoed in her mind, louder than her own breath. A distant clatter snapped her attention. Varick froze, muscles tightening like wires, eyes darting toward the noise. 2 guards rounded the corner, boots pounding a steady rhythm against the metal floor. She melted into the shadow, exhaling silently as they passed, the faint glow of their flashlights flickering across the corridor. When they vanished around the bend, she exhaled slowly, but the moment had cost her precious seconds. 3 hours remained. Not nearly enough time to complete her mission. Navigating the maze of winding corridors, Varick's steps were deliberate. A locked access panel blocked her way. A knot twisted in her stomach. She had no spare key.
Her fingers trembled under the crushing weight of the situation as she rummaged through her pack. No hacks, no tools, just her instincts and a stubborn resolve. Her hand brushed the stun baton, but it was useless against digital locks. A creak behind her made her freeze. Shadows stretched across the wall, another patrol. She jabbed at the keypad, desperation mounting, fingers fumbling as the guard's silhouette spilled into view. A green light flickered, door unlocked. Relief was short-lived. The delay gnawed at her resolve. Inside the comm chamber, the array blinked with cold indifference. Varick's jaw clenched as she saw the power grid was down, the signal was dead. Her eyes darted over tangled wires, heart racing. She tore open the panel, wires twisting like serpents. Numb fingers fumbled as she rewired, sweat stinging her eyes. Outside, a whistle, alarm spurred her into overdrive. She forced calm, rewiring frantically, the festival's fate riding on her hands. Every second felt like a shard of glass slicing through her resolve. The room filled with static as she hit the emergency broadcast, fragments of data spilling into the void. Suddenly, footsteps thundered, reinforcements.
Varick's ribs throbbed beneath the ragged fabric, sharp pain slicing through each breath. The city's midday hum pulsed against the back of her mind, vendors shouting, carts rattling, feet skidding over cobblestones slick with spilled oil and dust. She stumbled into an alley, the sharp scent of burnt metal curling in the heat. The Vale's edge lay beyond, its calm a thin veneer stretched over the city's bruised heart. Clenching her jaw, she felt the pain coil tighter, urgency surging within her. Behind her, the echoes of curses and boots faded, swallowed by the city's indifferent roar, no turning back now. Time was slipping away, each tick of the clock, a reminder that the path ahead was littered with traps unseen. Varick limped through the throng, faces blurring beneath heat waves and smoke. Nausea surged, but she clenched her teeth and forced her legs forward. A vendor's cart careened past, nearly toppling her. She caught the edge with a fist, knuckles scraping against splintered wood. Heads up. She rasped, teeth clenched against the pain. The vendor's glare sliced through the haze, but Varick's gaze flicked to her wound, blood soaking the fabric. She needed a moment, a breath, but the festival's drums pounded relentlessly, a second heartbeat in her chest. Corners folded into shadowed pockets, and Varick slipped into one, leaning against cold stone. Her fingers trembled as they traced the jagged line beneath her shirt, a souvenir from the night's chaos. Around her, the city's rhythm slowed, voices dipped to murmurs, the scent of spiced bread blending with distant smoke. She closed her eyes, willing the pain to recede, to make space for the plan that still danced just beyond reach. A shiver traced her spine as unseen eyes settled like dust on her skin. Movement caught her attention, a figure weaving through the crowd with practiced ease. Varick's muscles tensed, the ache in her side sharpening into a warning. She stepped forward, voice low and clipped. "Jalen," she said, voice sharp, every syllable deliberate. The other's eyes flickered, a flash of recognition masked by streetwise caution. "You're late." No accusation, just a fact. Jalen's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Had to lose a tail. His gaze drifted past Varick, scanning the throng. "You sure this is the place?" Varick nodded, voice a rasp. "No other." She gestured toward the heart of the Vale's edge, where banners snapped in the breeze, and the Varick Klein edged into the bustling city center, boots echoing against the uneven cobblestones. Lanterns swung from iron posts, casting flickering shadows over murals of triumph and despair. The air buzzed with the scent of roasted chestnuts mingling with the distant thrum of drums. People surged past, faces blurred beneath woven scarves, utterly absorbed in their own worlds. She kept her gaze steady, shoulders tense beneath her dark cloak. The crowd's chatter roared around her, yet every sound sharpened her focus. Today was the day to unveil the truth. Her dark hair, cut in a neat bob, framed her determined hazel eyes. A faint scar near her left eyebrow tightened as she inhaled deeply, a gust of wind tugging at her cloak, pulling her toward the heart of the square, where her resolve would face the gathering storm. Varick scanned the crowd, spotting a figure with piercing eyes lurking in the shadows. Her fists clenched as her heart hammered against her ribs. "Now or never," she whispered, stepping forward, voice steady as it cut through the noise.
Ren Thorn's web of deceit ends tonight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, shock morphing into outrage. A man nearby challenged her with a hiss. "Who are you to say that?" Varric met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm the one who's uncovered the truth, tangled beneath her lies." The crowd's tension thickened, eyes darting between her and the distant stage where Ren's guards lurked, poised for action. "Our city deserves truth, not her shadows. Tonight we bring light." Ren Thorn emerged from the shadows, her face a mask of fury. "You dare challenge the throne I forged? Your reckoning awaits." Varric stepped closer, chin lifted defiantly. "Your reign ends today." Ren's eyes flashed with rage. "This insolence will be your undoing," she hissed, signaling her guards to tighten their stance. The crowd surged, some shouting support, others hesitating as Varric noted the fear flickering in Ren's eyes, the desperate facade cracking. "You've pushed too far," Varric declared, voice calm yet resolute. "The truth can't be silenced anymore." The tension snapped like a wire, the moment hanging on a knife's edge as the city prepared to choose sides. Shouts erupted from the alleyways, organizers arguing over decorations, their voices rising sharply. Varric's attention flicked to them, then back to the chaos unfolding around her. The clang of metal felt like distant thunder raising the stakes. She pressed her hand to the scar near her eyebrow, rough skin scraping beneath her fingertips. A sharp ache twisted deep in her stomach. The crowd's energy shifted, a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Varric gritted her teeth, fighting the urge to retreat. "No," she thought, determination igniting within her. "This ends now." She took a bold step forward, voice rising above the din.
Quintus Cinder pressed her back against the cold, cracked stone of echoes of the Vale's town hall, fingers gripping the rusted iron gate. The afternoon sunlight filtered weakly through stained glass, casting muted, shifting patterns on her trembling hands. The festival's first chant would rise in mere hours, carrying with it the truth she desperately sought to conceal or reveal. The air pulsed with muffled drums, distant voices, and the faint scent of burning incense. Every moment felt like grains of sand slipping through her fingers. Her ears thundered with each beat, dread tightening her chest. She moved quickly, eyes darting between shadowed alleyways and flickering lanterns, aware that failure meant the lies would remain buried and her chance to act would vanish like smoke. She slipped between stalls, the shimmering veils and silk banners muffling her footsteps. The crowd swelled around her, voices rising in a chaotic, layered chorus. A shout pierced the noise. Guards spotted the archivist near the eastern gate. A cold knot twisted in her stomach. If they caught the target first, her lead would evaporate. She pressed on, shoulders brushing against a merchant's cart. "Watch where you're going," he snapped, eyes narrowing, her breath caught, sweat prickling her brow. The delay stole precious seconds. She pushed forward, pulse racing, each step a gamble. Turning into a narrow alley, Quintus spotted a flicker of candlelight behind a tattered curtain. Relief surged for just a moment, until two figures stepped into her path, blocking her escape. One's voice was cold and clipped. "No one passes without permission." Her gut tightened. Confrontation loomed, but her instincts screamed retreat. The festival's opening bell echoed faintly in the distance, a relentless reminder of urgency. Her hand hovered over her dagger, but hesitation could mean death. Shadows stretched long and dark in the alley's mouth, closing in. She darted left, heart racing. The alley ended in a dead end. Behind her, footsteps echoed, sharp, deliberate, relentless. Quintus crouched, pressing her back against the cold stone, clenching her fists. The seconds stretched thick and heavy. A hand reached past her hiding spot, fingertips brushing the rough brick. She stifled a gasp, muscles coiled like springs, ready to spring into action. The festival's chant swelled, drowning out her racing heart, but the pressure in her chest intensified, squeezing tighter. Then a shove hurled her forward into the open square. "Caught you at last," Malric growled, stepping into view. His eyes gleamed with menace, steel cold and merciless. Varric crouched low, his fingertips grazing the jagged stones of the shadow bastion. The cold seeped through his worn cloak, biting into his skin. Distant chants faintly echoed through the vaulted halls, their rhythm threading through the damp air. Shadows flickered along the cracked walls as flickering torchlight cast shifting shapes, ghostly and irregular. Every breath he took was shallow, each heartbeat loud in the silence. The scent of wet stone and old parchment clung to his senses, grounding him in a moment thick with anticipation.
This place, heavy with history, felt alive with secrets. The festival's flickering flames drew his gaze, danger and truth intertwined in the dance of light and shadow. Varric's hand trembled slightly as he moved, the dagger ready, eyes fixed on the glowing pyre ahead. He slipped through the shadows, muscles tense. The distant chants grew louder, a haunting pulse that tightened around his nerves. "Keep steady," he muttered, voice barely audible. The flickering fire cast warped shadows that seemed to reach out like claws. His gaze darted to a narrow corridor on the side, an escape route if needed. Every step felt deliberate, each movement a gamble. The parchment inside his coat, the fragment of Marek's slip, burned against his chest, a fragile key to everything. His mind replayed the secret's weight, but he pushed it aside. Now was the moment. No room for hesitation. A guard's footsteps echoed behind a pillar. Varric froze, breath catching for a heartbeat. He pressed himself flat against the cold stone, listening. The man's careless whistle grated against the solemn silence, a stark contrast to the ritual's gravity. Varric's fingers clenched around the parchment, knuckles whitening. "This is it," he whispered under his breath. The flames of the pyre leapt higher, shadows stretching like skeletal fingers. Varric's eyes flicked to the crowd, faces blurred in the flickering light, anticipation thick in the air. His stomach twisted. The truth was within reach, but danger lurked just beyond sight. Closing Parkerplough, the crowd's roar swelled, the flames crackling fiercely. Varric's grip tightened on the parchment, knuckles white. His chest rose and fell, eyes fixed on the flickering blaze. Every second stretched thin, the moment teetering on the edge. A gust of wind flicked ash into his face, stinging his eyes. He hesitated, then slowly exhaled, voice low but firm. "Now or never." With a quick glance at the crowd, he stepped forward, ready to reveal what he carried, or to disappear into the shadows, whichever came first.
Varric crouched behind a shattered pillar in the shadow bastion, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and burnt herbs. Outside, dusk shrouded the fortress in a dark hue, casting jagged shadows that flickered across moss-covered walls. He clenched the worn leather strap of his dagger, his fingers trembling. The distant clang of Ren Thorn's forces echoed ominously, each sound a hammer blow against his nerves. Resistance members huddled close, their faces drawn and eyes darting with uncertainty. Candlelight illuminated the lines carved by worry and fatigue, not just from the fight, but from the creeping doubt shadowing their resolve. Each breath felt like a measured effort, every glance a silent plea for strength. The fortress felt like a trap tightening around them. Ren's forces wouldn't wait long before closing in for good. A sharp crack split the air as a young gatherer tripped, scattering a basket of dried fruits across the uneven stone floor. The noise snapped everyone's attention. Varric tracked the young man, who froze wide-eyed and flushed. An elder stepped forward, his gaze narrowed, lips pressing into a thin line. The silent reprimand was sharper than any words. Tension rippled through the room, each wary glance maintaining the fragile peace. No one dared speak loudly or make sudden moves. The whispers of the resistance leaders mingled with the rustle of clothing and the hum of anxious breathing, underscoring the mounting pressure. Varric clenched his jaw, fighting the rising tension as he caught sight of the guards near the entrance, their cloaks heavy with the symbols of the keepers. The fortress's walls felt like they were closing in, each small slip a potential spark for chaos. Outside, the distant march of Ren's soldiers grew louder, a relentless drumbeat echoing the urgency to decide, stay and fight, or flee before it's too late. A tense silence settled after the stumble, broken only by the elder's steady voice. Varric's gaze flicked back to the door. The clock ticked in his ears, each second stretching longer. Ren's forces would breach the defenses soon, and every second counted. The resistance's hopes rested on narrow shoulders, their fate hanging by a thread. The crack of the basket echoed ominously. Every moment, every choice could unravel everything they fought for. Varric's breath hitched as a cold wave of fear rolled through him. Doubt crept over him, shadowing every thought. The silence pressed down harder, heavy with unspoken fears. Ren's soldiers prowled outside, their commands muffled yet relentless. The fortress's heartbeat quickened, each second stretching longer as the walls pulsed with tension. Resistance members exchanged glances, eyes flickering with a mix of hope and despair. Outside, the clang of armor and shouted orders grew. At the vale's edge, dusk settled like a weight over the cracked stones of the plaza, shadows stretching long and thin. Varric Klein moved through the muted light, boots stirring faint dust with each step. The cool evening air carried the scent of damp earth and distant pine, filling his lungs with each measured breath. Lanterns flickered along the weathered murals, their glow wavering like hesitant truths. He paused near a carved relic, fingers brushing the worn surface, caught between hesitation and resolve. Unspoken secrets pressed on him, urging him forward. Every step echoed the thickening tension in the air, promising that silence would not hold for long. Varric stared at the twisted root of an ancient tree, its gnarled branches clawing at the sky like scars from forgotten wars. He shifted his weight, ears straining for any sound beyond the whispering wind. "Time's slipping through our fingers," he muttered, voice tight with urgency. Behind him, the distant murmur of the keeper's hall faded into the darkness, replaced by the dry rustle of leaves stirred by the breeze. He clenched his fists, tension tightening his shoulders. Every nerve in his body screamed for action, yet he remained rooted, watching, waiting. Varric turned sharply as movement caught his eye at the edge of the plaza. Quintus Cinder stepped out of the shadows, face unreadable. "Now's not the time for this," Quintus said, eyes scanning the darkness, tone measured like a seasoned strategist. Ren Thorn appeared behind him, eyes cold and calculating. "Enough talk! Action answers only," Ren said sharply, each word deliberate, betraying her impatience. Varric stood his ground, voice strained but firm. "We need to reconsider. This isn't the way." Quintus shook his head slowly. "Resistance only hardens their resolve." Ren's lips curled into a faint smile. "Then we'll see who breaks first." The air crackled with unspoken threats. Each word cast a stone into still water, rippling outward, threatening to drown them all. Varric stepped between them, fists clenched. "We can't keep doing this," he said, voice cracking, words faltering as he spoke. "We're tearing ourselves apart." Quintus studied him, then nodded slowly. "Maybe, but surrender isn't an option either." Ren's smile vanished. "Then we fight." Her tone left no room for doubt, her gaze steady. Varric set his jaw, voice sharp and steady. "There has to be another way." Silence stretched, heavy with impossible choices, before Varric Klein stepped back from the vault's edge, the ground trembling beneath his boots. Night pressed in around him, thick with dampness and the scent of stone. Above, stars flickered through a veil of clouds, their cold light barely piercing the darkness. The whispering hall behind him stood silent, but unseen eyes seemed to watch, weighing his resolve. He tightened his grip on the worn satchel slung across his shoulder, its rough leather cool against his palm. Beyond the iron gates, secrets stirred like restless shadows, waiting for him to decide if they would free or destroy him. The distant hum of festival chaos seeped into his bones, reminding him of the stakes. Each breath felt like a challenge, each step a test of resolve. The path into the vault yawned before him, dark and unyielding. Varric's boots clanged against the stone as he descended, the sound echoing in the cloistered silence. Jagged carvings, ancient runes with chipped edges, pulsed faintly with a blue glow beneath his gaze. The air tasted metallic, heavy with earth and something older, buried deep beneath layers of dust. He paused, hand hovering over a rusted latch guarding a narrow passage. His fingers curled into a fist, then relaxed. No retreat now. A quick whisper brushed past him, sharp, almost swallowed by the vault's vastness. Shadows flickered between pillars, nothing but darkness. He exhaled a shallow breath, ears straining for the next sound. The passage ahead loomed like a throat of black stone curling downward. Varric's footsteps echoed as he moved, the walls closing in with each step. The satchel pressed against him, its burden a constant reminder of the truth he carried. Nails scraped against stone in the distance. He froze, muscles tensed, a low voice cracked through the silence. "Don't think you're making this trek alone." Varric spun, eyes searching the gloom. A figure stepped forward, shadowed and silent. "That truth you hold, it won't be your shield." The words hit like stones. Varric ground his teeth, muscles tightening in silent defiance. "Then I break the silence myself." Flickering torchlight revealed the figure's face, deep lines etched from worry, eyes sharp with unspoken threats.
Varric's hand moved to the satchel's strap, knuckles whitening. "Why follow me?" he asked, voice low. The figure's laugh was dry, brittle. "Your secrets, they've tainted mine long before this night." The vault seemed to breathe around them, humming with tension. Varric stepped closer, voice steely. "Speak plain."
Varric crouched behind the shattered fountain at the center of the ruined city square. The night air felt thick, heavy with smoke and dust, while the metallic scent of blood lingered like a bitter memory. Shadows flickered at the edges of crumbling arches, whispering secrets he could not quite grasp. His fingers tightened around the hilt of his dagger, grounding him in this chaos. The distant murmur of voices crawled through the debris, a cold warning tightening his nerves. Moonlight fractured on shards of glass, casting jagged reflections across the cracked stones beneath his boots. A flicker of movement at the square's edge made his heart race. He pressed deeper into the darkness, every sense attuned. The city's skeleton groaned, alive with the weight of its past, secrets he had to uncover before dawn erased all traces of what had happened here. He rose slowly, muscles coiled, stepping over twisted metal and shattered stone. The ground crunched underfoot, the sound sharp and jarring. Ahead, toppled statues with eroded faces stared blankly, silent witnesses to the destruction. He drew slow, deliberate breaths, fighting the relentless pounding in his chest. Voices drew nearer, hushed but urgent, weaving suspicion into the night. He ducked behind a fallen column, pressing his palms against the cold stone. A figure slipped past, cloak swirling like smoke, a gleam of a knife sheath catching the faint moonlight. Varric's jaw clenched. Every step forward felt heavier, each obstacle a weight on his shoulders. "You're late," a voice hissed from the shadows. Varric's head snapped toward it, muscles coiling. A woman emerged, her eyes sharp beneath a hood that shadowed her face. "The council waits," she said, voice clipped. He kept his tone low. "Time isn't ours tonight." His fingers twitched near his concealed weapon, tension thick as the air around them. She studied him, unreadable. "The festival waits for no one, Varric. Neither does the truth." Her words sliced through the cold wind, stirring the remnants of tattered banners overhead. "Then we move fast." "No mistakes," he said, shoulders squared. He scanned the ruined square, every shadow a possible trap. She nodded, stepping closer, their alliance trembling like cracked glass. "Follow me," she whispered, leading him into a narrow alley where darkness thickened. Footsteps echoed behind them, others trailing, unseen but sensed. Varric's senses sharpened. The city's bones seemed alive, breathing secrets and danger. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, each breath a fragile tether between revelation and ruin. The alley swallowed them, walls closing in like a tightening noose. Varric's mind raced. Escape routes. Varric crouched behind a shattered statue in the heart of the ruined city square. The cold air seeped through her tattered sleeves, prickling her skin like 1,000 tiny needles. The remnants of a once vibrant festival lay scattered around her, broken pillars, crumbled stone, and shadows that whispered of chaos. Only a few hours remained before the truth would either emerge or be buried under layers of deception. The distant clock tower's chimes drummed in her ears, each toll a reminder of time slipping away. The square, once alive with laughter and light, now felt like a trap, the silence thick and suffocating. She could almost taste the dust in the air, gritty and bitter, as she pushed aside debris, revealing a weathered, sealed chest. A shiver ran down her spine, and her breath formed visible mist in the chilly night. Her foot caught on a loose stone, clattering against broken tiles, the sound echoing sharply in the stillness. Varric froze, muscles coiled tight. Shouts erupted from beyond the ruins, guards, alert and approaching. No time to hide. She darted toward a collapsed archway, her heart pounding, breaths coming faster. Failure now meant the festival's facade would solidify, trapping truths behind thick veils. Sweat stung her eyes as she brushed dust from the box, revealing its weathered surface. A sudden low groan shook the ground. The ruin was unstable, every second risked collapse. A deafening crack split the air as the arch behind her crumbled, debris raining down like thunder. Varric lunged forward, clutching the chest, the impact battering her back. The lock shattered, flinging the box open to reveal only dust and faded scraps, no evidence. Worse, the collapse had sealed her escape,
trapping her amid the ruins. As guards closed in, the festival bells tolled again, closer and harsher, marking the passage of time. She gulped dry air, muscles clenched tight, knowing survival alone wouldn't suffice. A new nightmare began, unmasking the truth without proof as time ran out. Varric sagged, her gaze locked on dust swirling in the moonlight. The city's secrets had slipped through her fingers, the hollow clang of the bells echoing in her ears. With a deep breath, she pulled herself to her feet, knowing this moment marked a shift. Surrender wasn't an option. Distant shouts filled the air, blending with the faint hum of the waking festival. She scanned the ruined square, shadows concealing what she could not see. The truth remained elusive, but her mind raced with possibilities. The city's
The first pale light of dawn seeped through the narrow cracks of Whispering Shadow Alley, where the air hung heavy with the scent of aged wood and damp stone. Cracked cobblestones glistened under flickering lanterns, each uneven surface a reminder of what had been. Varric Cline pressed his back against a peeling wall, muscles coiled tight. His eyes darted past discarded crates and shuttered stalls, searching. Somewhere in this maze of grime, the last piece of evidence hid, waiting. Time felt like a fist around his throat, each second dragging him closer to a moment that could either ignite hope or plunge him into despair. He took a deep breath, his heartbeat thunderous in his ears as he reached for the crumpled map tucked beneath a loose brick. Fingers trembling, a sudden shove from behind jolted Varric. He stumbled, spinning to face a ragged figure emerging from the shadows, eyes sharp and accusatory. "Looking for something, stranger," the voice rasped. Varric froze, every muscle tensed as the figure stepped closer. Evade or confront? Thoughts flickered through his mind. He raised a hand, signaling to hold back. No room for mistakes. The alley's shadows felt like they were closing in, whispering warnings of disaster. He pressed against the wall, trying to steady his breath as anxiety coiled tighter within him. The city's clock echoed in his mind, each tick more urgent than the last. He had to move. Now, Varric darted deeper into the alley, muscles wound tight like a drawn bowstring. Each footfall echoed, each breath a reminder of the stakes. Sweat slicked his palms as he pushed forward, urgency fueling his every step. The distant chime of festival bells grew louder, marking precious seconds lost. Footsteps multiplied behind him, closing in. In a panic, he knocked over a barrel, the crash ringing through the alley like an alarm without hesitation. He slipped through a narrow gap between buildings, lungs heaving. The map's missing piece still eluded him, every moment a gamble for survival. The alley twisted into a dead end, brick walls pressing inward, suffocating. Varric's fingers searched frantically for the loose brick. His hand trembled as he pried it open, revealing a sealed envelope. The evidence relief flickered, but was quickly overshadowed as the pounding footsteps grew louder. He stuffed the envelope into his coat, adrenaline surging. A cry pierced the air, a shout from the alley's mouth. Panic seized his throat. He was cornered. The relentless ticking of the clock hammered in his mind, each second a step closer to disaster. Faced with no options, Varric's thoughts spiraled. The festival was nearing, the truth would vanish beneath lies if he failed. Weapons drawn, the pursuers advanced, shouting, his muscles tensed, ready to flee or fight. Then, a scream from the alley's mouth stopped him cold, an old ally. Dawn broke over the reclaimed city centre, casting a pale light over the cracked marble statue that stood sentinel in the plaza. Varric crouched behind it, fingers brushing the sharp edges worn smooth over decades. The air was tinged with the faint scent of incense, a memory of her mother's kitchen, where spices mingled with wood smoke. Across the square, a soft chant rose and fell, intimate yet distant, like a prayer half remembered. Lanterns flickered against weathered murals, shadows dancing over the weathered stone. Her chest constricted, breaths shallow and quick, as the veil's edge hung heavy with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Each heartbeat echoed the approaching festival, the moment to reveal or bury the past forever. The envelope's weight pressed into her palm, a promise and a threat intertwined as she prepared for what lay ahead. Shadows stirred nearby, victory remained just out of reach, survival's edge pressing against her ribs. Varric moved forward, boots whispering on the smooth marble with every step. The murmurs of the crowd ebbed and flowed beneath the chants, pulling her toward the grand stage. Her eyes darted over the cracked relics lining the square, their carved faces watching her, waiting. The scent of old parchment teased memories of her father's study,
a room filled with secrets she had never dared to unlock. She ground her teeth, muscles taut with resolve. Secrets suffocate, and tonight hesitation was not an option. Each move felt like walking into a trap, yet she pressed on, urgency driving her forward. A ripple in the crowd caught her eye. Varric froze, muscles coiling beneath her skin like a spring. The pursuers lurked just beyond the flickering flames, shadows blending with the darkness, a knot twisted in her stomach, cold and unyielding as she slipped behind a carved pillar, hand pressing against the cold stone for grounding. The chant swelled, sacred and somber, but beneath the surface, a whisper of danger hissed like a snake. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth as she swallowed hard. The night's fragile peace was just a thin veneer over something far darker. The envelope's edges crinkled as she gripped it tighter, its promise and threat intertwined. Shadows shifted at the plaza's edge, closing in, and she knew this night would fracture more than the city's silence. His fingers shook imperceptibly, an old weakness she could never shed. The envelope felt rough against her palm. She exhaled slowly, trying to calm her nerves, her eyes scanning the plaza's exits, every shadow, every hiding spot. She had
Varric's boots crunched against the uneven stones of the reclaimed city center, the dawn chill biting through her thin leather gloves. The air was sharp, filled with the scents of incense and aged parchment, a reminder of the secrets long buried in this place. She brushed her fingers over a low, curved bench, its smooth surface worn down by years of weary souls seeking solace. Lanterns flickered, casting playful shadows on the cold marble sculptures which stood like silent sentinels. The plaza felt alive, yet a tension simmered beneath its surface, a fragile calm before the storm. The festival loomed, promising both celebration and reckoning, while goosebumps prickled on her skin, a reaction to the anticipation thrumming in the air. Settling onto the stone bench, Varric pressed her hand against the cool surface beneath her coat, grounding herself as her eyes settled on the weathered murals curling along the plaza's edges. The soft chanting around her pulsed faintly, rising and falling like a heartbeat. A tight coil twisted in her stomach, making her fingers tremble slightly as she sought steadiness in the solid stone beneath her hand. With each breath, the metallic taste of anxiety lingered, mingling with the incense, a reminder of the conflict that lay ahead. A shadow shifted at the edge of her vision. Varric's fingers curled around a coarse stone relic, its roughness anchoring her as a figure approached. The soft scrape of footsteps mingled with the hum of whispered secrets swirling through the crisp air. As the newcomer drew nearer, Varric's skin tensed, a sheen of sweat forming on her brow despite the morning chill. She brushed the cool marble sculpture beside her, its presence momentarily calming the storm within. Sacred chants wove around them, a thin veil of sound barely containing the simmering tension beneath the plaza's tranquil facade. "Are you ready, Varric?" Wren's voice cut through the murmur, low and urgent. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, her voice steadying, though a rapid thump echoed in her chest, betraying the calm she tried to project. Quintus appeared at her side, his expression grave. "We need to move soon. The festival begins at dawn, and the council won't wait." "What if Uriel doesn't show?" Varric asked, glancing toward the shadows, her pulse quickening at the thought of facing the council without full support. "She will come, she has to," Wren interjected, his eyes reflecting a flicker of uncertainty. Varric nodded, their gazes locking for a moment. They met each other's eyes, determination hardening in the silent exchange, a shared commitment to the path ahead, closing paragraphs. An oppressive stillness settled over them, thickening the air with unspoken. Varric's boots sank into the uneven stones of the Grand Plaza, cool remnants of the day lingering beneath him as dusk settled in. The plaza stretched out, shadows dancing across worn benches that had listened to countless whispered secrets over the years. He brushed his fingers over the rough stone edge of a nearby bench, grounding himself in this moment of gathering tension. Lanterns flickered overhead, casting warm pools of light that illuminated the weather-beaten murals, their colors a blend of triumph and sorrow. The sharp scent of incense mixed with the tang of sun-warmed stone filled the air, while distant sacred chants echoed through the plaza like a heartbeat. Minutes slipped through the fading light. The festival's truth loomed, demanding confrontation. Varric touched the marble sculpture at the plaza's center, its cool surface challenging him to face the hidden truths it embodied.
He traced the jagged edges with his fingertips, feeling the contrast between the polished marble and rough stone, each texture telling a story of endurance. The lantern light flickered, casting shadows that stretched and shrank, like the past breathing alongside the present. The chants reverberated in his chest, their rhythm syncing with the tightening knot in his stomach. With every heartbeat he felt the urgency of the moment press down on him. Some truths could no longer remain buried. A gust of wind flurried fallen leaves across the cobblestones, their crisp edges whispering secrets against the stone. Varric pulled his cloak tighter as the cool air bit into his sweat-dampened skin. The scent of incense thickened, drawing forth memories of moments when revelations brought hope, not dread. But tonight a sharper edge loomed, a palpable tension lingering in the twilight. As he stood there, the murmurs of passers-by brushed against the stone benches, their hushed voices mingling with the soft rustling of leaves. His fingers dug into the smooth bench edge, nails scraping the stone as silence thickened the air, pregnant with unspoken truths. The colors of the murals deepened in the lantern light. Ochres bleeding into burnt sienna, blues fading into shadows, each shade a witness to the layered history of the plaza, and the tenuous peace it now held. Somewhere on the plaza's edge, a bell tolled, its clear note slicing through the chants like a blade, marking the urgency of dwindling time. A figure slipped onto a nearby bench, the worn stone cold beneath their weight, but inviting nonetheless. Varric's eyes caught the movement, followed by the flicker of lantern light, revealing a line of tension etched across Uriel Wren's brow. They exchanged no words, the air charged with unspoken truths and shared burdens, as the last light of day.
Lantern flames flickered against the dusk, their amber glow casting shadows on the weathered marble statues, the scent of burned wood and incense wove through the cold mountain air, thickening as the breeze stirred. Varric crouched by the relics, his fingertips brushing the rough texture of the stone. The plaza was silent save for distant chants, rising and falling like a held breath. Every step he took echoed softly, grounding him as he ground his teeth, feeling his stomach twist with tension. The murals, worn and faded, watched silently, their cracked surfaces bleeding into the shadows. Time pressed down on him relentlessly, each heartbeat sharpening the urgency to act. The truth hovered just beyond reach, veiled in the gathering darkness, the stillness around him like a calm before a storm. His eyes darted to the far corner where ancient relics stood sentinel, their carved surfaces cool beneath his palm. A faint memory flickered, his mother's steady hands dusting faded maps, whispering about lost paths. That scent, the ink dust and old parchment, offered a brief comfort, a stark contrast to the gnawing doubt in his gut. He crouched again, fingers tightening around a chipped statue's base, feeling its uneven edges. The festival's deadline loomed sharp as a blade. Hesitation could cost everything. A nearby lantern flickered, its unsteady light casting jittery shadows across his tightening chest. The unspoken questions pressed against him, but he refused to flinch. "This night won't bury the truth," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the murmuring chants. Footsteps approached, snapping him from his thoughts. A voice, low and steady, sliced through the air. "You're chasing ghosts again, Varric." He hesitated, heart racing. "I'm not chasing ghosts," he shot back, voice steady but edged with tension. "This truth, it's what keeps us from drowning in lies." The voice sighed heavily, heavy with regret. Varric brushed his fingers along a carved relief, tracing the faint outlines of a symbol. "If we don't face it now, the festival will hide it away forever," he insisted, the roughness of his voice echoing his desperation. A sudden breeze stirred, carrying the scent of burning wood and something darker. Varric inhaled sharply, eyes narrowing. Shadows danced at the edges where lanterns dimmed. The festival's pressure mounted. He let the parchment fall, hands clenched into fists. "No more delays," he murmured, his voice firm. "This is the moment." His gaze fixed on the horizon, where the last light drained from the sky. A flicker of doubt teased the corners of his mind, but he crushed it. The truth wouldn't stay hidden much longer. The final lantern guttered, plunging the plaza into deeper shadow. Varric's breath hitched. Silence pressed in, heavy and suffocating. His fingers scraped the marble once more, seeking the solidity of the stone amid the swirling uncertainty. The Grand Plaza buzzed with anticipation as dusk draped the sky in deep orange and purple. Lanterns hung from stalls, their flickering light casting shadows that danced over the cobblestones. Quintus Cinder adjusted the amulet hidden beneath her tunic, the cold metal pressed against her skin. Hours remained before the crowd gathered, blissfully unaware of the truths that could shatter their illusions. She had to find Varric Klein before the ceremonial bell tolled, sealing secrets that had lingered too long. The festivity felt like a countdown, every sound a reminder of the ticking clock. Time slipped away like sand through her fingers, and she had to act swiftly despite the dangers swelling like storm clouds on the horizon. The plaza gates slammed shut with a metallic clang, guards rushing to barricade every exit. Quintus froze, her chest tightening as the path closed. She darted toward the nearest guard, voice sharp. "Varric's out there! I can't wait!" The guard's eyes narrowed, fingers twitching toward the hilt of his sword. Her fingers shook at her sides, and a sharp edge crept into her voice, betraying her calm. The clock's distant chime hammered in her ears, urgency thrumming through her veins. Without hesitation, she feinted left and sprinted around the guard's flank, shouts erupting behind her. "Move now!" A crowd swelled near the center of the plaza, a swirling mass of revelers and officials. She scanned the ceremonial dais, but Varric was nowhere to be seen. Whispers reached her ears, rumors of his disappearance, a secret arrest, beads of sweat formed along her spine. The festival's purpose twisted cruelly, the truth lay buried beneath layers of deception. She searched the faces in the crowd, eyes sharp for anyone who might know more. Each moment lost tightened the trap. The bell's toll would come, and with it, silence. Quintus seized a young messenger weaving through the throng, grabbing his arm. His eyes darted around, pupils dilated, unmistakable fear crossing his face. "Varric's been taken to the Eastern Tower," he hissed. Cheeks. Shh. 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 Shh.
Right.
Varric's boots echoed against the worn marble tiles of renewed city square, each step deliberate in the cool night air. A sharp breeze carried the scent of incense and aged parchment, stirring memories of a cramped study filled with whispered secrets and yellowed books. Lanterns flickered overhead, casting a warm glow onto weathered murals that told stories of resilience and rebellion. The low chant of a gathering crowd rippled through the plaza, pulling at something buried deep within him. Tonight, the veil's edge felt taut, as if it might tear at the first sign of truth. His fingers brushed against a carved relic, tracing its grooves as if seeking solace in its history. Every breath tightened the pressure of expectation around him, the festival approaching like a tide demanding answers. He pulled his coat tighter against the chill and scanned the square. The stillness belied the tension beneath the surface, an electric current waiting to erupt. His gaze landed on a mural depicting defiance, faces frozen in stone, each etched with longing. The memory of his mentor's disappearance flickered through his mind, a ghost haunting this place. He ground his teeth and muttered a curse, eyes narrowing at the growing shadows. This wouldn't end cleanly. A rustle near the marble fountain snapped him from his thoughts. He turned sharply, heart quickening as he searched for the source. Only the wind answered, carrying shadows and secrets he couldn't decipher. Kneeling, he picked up a fragment of a fallen scroll, brittle and worn. Each symbol was a dangerous puzzle. "Every detail counts," he murmured, eyes darting across the square, seeking threats hidden in the dark. Varric moved toward the center, footsteps steady and resolute. The chants grew louder, stirring a restless ache in his chest. His fingers twitched, an old habit from years of tension, tapping rhythms against his wrist, drumming courage into the air. The scent of incense sharpened, mingling with something acrid, smoke, faint but unmistakable. Memories of a fire that had nearly consumed his home clawed at him, a reminder that mistakes could be fatal. "No room for errors tonight," he whispered, scanning for danger, lurking in the shadows. A creak echoed behind him, and Varric's muscles coiled. He froze, instinct screaming as he narrowed his eyes into the dark. Nothing stirred. He exhaled, forcing himself to breathe slow and steady. "Precise timing, precise moves," he muttered, the air thick with unspoken truths. Every step forward pulled him deeper into a trap he sensed but couldn't quite see. The lantern light flickered violently, shadows leaping like living things. Varric's pulse raced as tranquility shattered, replaced by a surge of urgency.
He scanned the perimeter, fingers flexing in readiness. The snap of a twig drew his gaze toward a narrow alley where darkness coiled like a serpent. He murmured,